Hi guys, today we're going to talk about all the books that I want to read in August. August has already started, but that's fine. We're just running a little bit behind on videos. It's all good. So just gonna dive right into it. I'm continuing a couple series. I think I'm starting a new one. We're just gonna have fun this month. Trying to forget about the fact that I have to move at the end of the month. We'll see how that goes. So starting off is a total impulse purchase that I just got the other day, and that is Forget Me Not by, who is it? Julie Soto. This is a romance novel. I believe that was a Raylo fanfiction, maybe? I can't tell. That seems to be a popular subgenre of romance these days. And I think this has to do with a wedding planner and a florist, and it's like a second chance romance. I've seen it floating around TikTok a lot. It's got a lot of hype, so I hope it's good. We shall see. Again, this was a total impulse purchase the other day. I really like the cover art. It's got the illustrated cover, which is nice, but it's not the like super simplistic art that we see a lot on romance novels these days. So I think it's fun. I hope it's good. Then continuing Veronica Speedwell with A Perilous Undertaking. This is the second book in this series, and it's like a murder mystery set in Victorian England, and it's a lot of fun. The main character is a little bit annoying, but I suffer through it because the mysteries themselves are fun. I like the setting, and I really like Stoker, her companion. This one seems to be a murder mystery about a bohemian artist that was murdered by her lover, and Veronica is tasked with proving that her lover didn't do it. So we shall see how it goes. I have technically already started this one, but it's fun so far, and they're just kind of fun little adventures. I like this series. I don't love it yet, but I know that this fan base is very dedicated, so I'm curious to see how it continues to grow and develop. Then we have the next Murderbot book, and that's Network Effect. This is the first and so far only full-length novel in this series. I don't know what about this story in particular is worthy of being more of a full-fledged novel than the rest of it's been so far. I have really been enjoying how punchy and fun and fast-paced the novellas have been, so I hope I like the novel just as much. And I'm not entirely sure what the plot of this one is going to be, but Murderbot typically finds itself protecting hapless humans, and not really quite sure why it cares so much, but it does anyways. I always like Murderbot's sort of narrative voice, and yeah, I'm curious to see how the full-length novel goes. I was approved for an arc of the new one that comes out in November, so I'm trying to catch up so I can read that and review it before release. So hopefully this one I can finish this month. Also going to be continuing Red Rising with Golden Sun. This is the second book in the first trilogy, and I've heard nothing but incredible things about this one. Like, from what I've heard, this is one of those series that just gets better with every installment, and I'm curious to see how shit hits the fan in this one, basically. The first book, Red Rising, follows a character named Darrow, who is born at the bottom of the society's caste system and ends up kind of clawing his way to the top with the goal of bringing down the whole system in mind, and it was really intense. The pacing and tension were just excellent, and Darrow as a main character is incredible. It's so easy to root for him, and it's so satisfying when his plans work out, and just it gives me the same feeling that like the Count of Monte Cristo does, just to like see this character wronged and like watch them just burn everything to the ground around them. It's chaotic, and I love it. I'm really excited about this next one. Again, like everything kind of gets flipped on its head in this one, and like the story just goes in a completely different direction than what the first book kind of sets it up as, so I am curious to see how that goes. Next up we have Hench by Natalie Zena Walshots. This is a bit of an older book, and I say older, but I think it came out in like 2020. It's not a new release is all, and I'm reading this one because I want to do a vlog with like supervillain adjacent books, and this one I think would be perfect for it. So John Scalzi has a book coming out called Starter Villain that I have an arc for, and I want to get to that one. And then there's also, I believe it's like a rom-com coming out called Assistant to the Villain. So I'm going to be reading this, I think, in conjunction with those two and hopefully vlogging my experience. And this one has to do with a character that used to work for a superhero, I believe, and then they got like super injured and then laid off. So she ends up, in her anger, applying for a job with the villain. So the little description at the end says, "This is a sharp, witty, modern debut and explores the individual cost of justice through a fascinating mix of millennial office politics, heroism measured through data science, body horror, and a profound misunderstanding of quantum mechanics." So I'm hoping this is fun. I believe Katie Coulson read this and quite enjoyed it, but I haven't seen a lot of other booktubers talk about it, so I'm excited. I think this will be a fun vlog, and hopefully I don't get burned out on the sort of niche subgenre, but I'm currently very much looking forward to it. Then I have a few Fairyloot backlist books. That's been a goal of mine this year, is to actively try to slim that kind of part of my TBR shelf down. I'm getting all these, special edition books and spending a lot of money for them, but am I actually reading them? So two of them are also standalones that I want to try to get done by the end of the year, so I figure this is a good month to just dive right in. First up is One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig. I believe this is the first in a series. I'm not sure if it's a duology or a trilogy, but I've heard excellent things about this book. I believe there's like tarot magic. I might be misremembering that. There's a spirit trapped in our main character's head, and she calls him the Nightmare, but he protects her and keeps her secrets, but nothing comes for free, especially magic. So my understanding of the plot of this book is a little bit more vague, but again, I've heard excellent things, so I am actually quite excited to get into this, and I believe the next book comes out this fall as well, so I'm hoping I like it. I really like the color scheme. The red and the teal is really pretty with the gold. So yeah, hope I love it, and I hope it lives up to the hype. I read that there's a romance in here, and I love a good fantasy romance, so we'll see how it goes. Then I finally want to read A Dowry of Blood by S.T. Gibson. This really made waves when it was self-published, and then it got picked up, and then Fairyloot did this really pretty edition of it, and I've had it for like a year now almost, or coming up on a year. Actually, I think it was the November adult pick for Fairyloot last year, but I need to read it finally. I've had it on my shelf, and August is kind of like a transitionary month into fall. I'm starting to reach for these gothic, moody, darker reads, and I think this will be an excellent addition into that, and again, where I've heard this is amazing, I'm very excited to read it. This one is a retelling, I think, of Dracula, and it's from the perspective of one of his brides, retrospective epistolary novel, I believe. And I've heard it's feminist, I've heard it's queer, and I've just heard it's an excellent read. So I, once again, hope it lives up to the hype, and I'm curious to see what it is that everyone likes about this book. It is so beautiful. This edition is stunning. Sorry, I'm just like getting caught up in all the details. It's so pretty. But yeah, this one I just need to get off my TBR. It was on my list of books I want to read, or like standalone books I want to read by the end of 2023. So I feel like it's doable. It's kind of a nice little shorty. And I think it's technically a standalone, though I do believe S.T. Gibson has said that there's going to be another book sort of in this same world, but I don't think it's going to be considered like a direct sequel. This next one feels ambitious. If there's any of these books I'm not going to get to this month, it's probably this one. It's been intimidating me for almost a year now, and that is Babel by R.F. Kuang. Babel, I think both are correct. This is the Waterstones edition. I also have the Fairyloot edition. That one's actually sitting on my shelf next to the Poppy War at the moment, but this is a much hyped, much loved book. I've read everything else by R.F. Kuang at this point. I just read Yellowface earlier this year and absolutely loved it. This one is a lot more intimidating, though. It's dark academia. I know there's like footnotes and stuff in here. It's about colonialism. Our main character, I believe, was an orphan in China, but then he was brought over to England and raised and like goes to Oxford University and works at like in the linguistics department. And a lot of this book has to deal with like colonialism and translation and like how colonialism can work through language as well, and like how insidious that is. I think it's a Fairyloot pick, so it does have a fantastical lean to it. It has like silver is magical, I think, in this world. I'm curious to see how that works out. But yeah, I know I love this author. I've heard this book is excellent. I feel like I'm gonna like it. It just scares me. It's a little chonky. It's not the chonkiest book by any means, but it's like just enough at 546 pages where I'm like, ooh, I don't know if I'm gonna get to that one this month. But I really want to, and if I don't read it this month, it'll probably roll over into September because I am going to read this book this year, dang it. So yeah, hype me up for this one, guys, please. I need all the encouragement and support for this one, I think. And then I have 2 arcs that I want to get to this month. First off is a rollover from last month, and that is the aforementioned Starter Villain by John Scalzi that I briefly talked about earlier. This one deals with a main character who inherits like a supervillain organization from his uncle, I think, upon his uncle's death. And then he starts getting targeted by his uncle's enemies, and I think the place is also managed by talking cats, so it sounds bizarre and funny and hopefully like a fun time. And then I also have the Hurricane Wars, which this book I'm not sure how I feel about. I've heard, once again, that it was a fan fiction, I think Raylo as well, but that it was like really good. And that alone, I'm like, okay, I'm intrigued, but I've also seen it compared to Fourth Wing. I'm not a Fourth Wing hater because I haven't read it, and I try not to like hate on books that I haven't read, but I have like no interest in Fourth Wing. Like, based on the reviews I have seen, I just don't think I could handle the writing, and I think I'd just struggle with it. So I'm glad that there's people out there that love this book. Obviously, it has a huge fan following now, but if it is a very true comparison, I don't know if I'll love this one. So I do think it is a upcoming Fairyloot pick as well, I think for like October or November, so hopefully I like it because there's a special edition coming my way. And yeah. And then a new release that I don't have yet, it comes out I think next week, is A Duet with the Siren Duke by Elise Kova. This is the newest Married to Magic novel. I have the first 3. The first one is A Deal with the Elf King, A Dance with the Fae Prince, and then the third one is A Duel with the Vampire Lord. So it always has to do with a human and a supernatural being, and this one is with a Siren Duke. So I'm curious about the biology of that, but we'll see how that goes. This series is really fun. They're cozy. They're not that deep, but they're a good time, and I always quite like the romances involved. So I do want to read more by Elise Kova at some point. I have a couple other first books in some of her other series, but I've been really enjoying the Married to Magic series. And that wraps up my August TBR. It's a little ambitious considering I have to spend a lot of time this month packing and moving, but I think I'm gonna need a distraction from the stress of my real life as well. So hopefully I'll be able to get to at least a good chunk of these books. So let me know if you've read any of them. Which ones should I tackle first? Let me know. Again, I could use all the encouragement for Babel, please. But thank you guys so much for watching. Feel free to subscribe to my channel if you aren't already. Like this video, comment down below, do what you will, and as always, have a lovely day.